Everyone, it's Kristen. So I did a video of Storm 4 because I finally found it, but I'm going to continue my Dazzler series because, well, I don't have the latest issue of Uncanny X-Men yet. Like I said, I've subscribed through Marvel, haven't gotten it yet. So anyway, so here we are. We're gonna do some more Dazzler videos while we wait for it. So here we have the cover, The Mystery of the Blue Shield, and The Menace of the Terror Tank. Okay, so what's interesting about this is the first appearance of the Blue Shield. He makes another appearance in Dazzler issues later, but pretty much he is a character that is in comics very, very, very sporadically. Like I think only since he was introduced, and I'm pretty sure this is like, yeah, 1981. He's been in like 8 different issues. The last one was Amazing Spider-Man something in like 2008. So, yeah, they introduced this character. I feel like that happens a lot though. They introduce new characters, make new characters, and then they just kind of like forget about him or push him to the side in favor of popular characters, which I get because popular characters sell and it's harder to introduce a new character and get people excited about it when they have all these established characters. So it just, yeah, it's interesting. The Blue Shield, his first appearance is in this comic. So when we last left Dazzler, she, had fought Doom and Nightmare, and now she's having like fever dreams kind of about that experience. And she also thinks about when she fought Enchantress and she had that confrontation with her dad. And so Johnny brought her to the hospital when he found her. And here's Dr. Paul Jensen and Nurse Collins. And, Dr. Jensen is like, I need to, I feel like you're okay. Your test came back good, but I just want to keep you overnight, just for observation, just to make sure. And so Johnny, he leaves and he's like, okay, well, Dazzler seems to be in good hands, so I guess I'll leave and, I'll come back and check on her later. So, Nurse Collins has Dazzler, take off her makeup and change out of her jumpsuit, and she tells her, hey, try to be quiet because your roommate, Mrs. Cartelli, is having a really rough time. She, it doesn't seem like she's gonna make it much longer. I mean, there's not much wrong with her. It's just she seems to just be having you know, problems. And so in her like weakened state, Mrs. Cartelli says, Joey, have to find him. He'll always be my Joey, no matter what. Must tell Joey I still care. Must tell him I still love him. And so Dazzler, she feels for her. And I mean, she doesn't know who Joey is, but she feels bad because this woman seems to be in much distress and just trying to find Joey and just really upset about the situation. And so she's trying to figure out what she can do. And in a different part of town, we have Bo Barrington, his gang. They run like a racketeering gambling empire. And the Blue Shield comes and breaks up their party basically. And he has this force field around him that, basically nothing hurts him. Bullets fly off of him. He can, take a punch, take impact, and he leaves them. He didn't kill them, but he leaves them and says, "Tell Bo Barrington his number has come up, and give him, my regards, the Blue Shield. Give him the regards of the Blue Shield." So, and of course, like I said, uh, Dazzler. It's these the Dazzler series is constantly introducing new characters, and so it's, there's a lot to set up a story so that it makes sense why Dazzler is in the middle of stuff. So the next morning, Dr. Paul Jansen is walking Dazzler out, and he's like, you seem to be good. How about, and she inquires about Mrs. Cartelli, and he says, let's see, was it 20? Yeah, 20 years ago, her husband and her son, Joey, witnessed what they thought was an accidental hit and run, but really someone like from a rival gang was trying to kill Bo. And when Bo Barrington, he was lying there, the dad went to help, but the people who, did the hit and run, they came back and were shooting to make sure they killed him, and they accidentally killed Mr. Cartelli instead. And unfortunately, Joseph wasn't hurt, but he did see his dad, get murdered right before his eyes. And Bo, he was fine. He lived, you know, he was fine. And so he felt bad. So he reached out to Mrs. Cartelli and said, "Hey, I want to help you financially. Um, anything I can do." And she refused though because she knew he was, a criminal and she didn't want to take money from him. But then when Joey got older, he reached out to Bo and joined his empire, basically. Um, yeah, so Mrs. Cartelli basically was heartbroken by that because here is this, I mean, Bo is the reason why her husband, Joey's father was dead, and yet here's Joey, working for him now. So she is in the hospital and she's just, she's heartbroken. Like she kind of had lost the will to live in a way. So the doctor asked her to lunch and she's like, "Oh, I have to take a rain check. I have a rehearsal that I need to get to." And she, which she goes and to the cashier and he gives her a bill for her overnight hospital stay of $277.83, which of course, remember, this is 1981, so that's actually a lot of money. And unfortunately, like health insurance, anything health related is expensive. Like because I pay for my own health insurance. Like I'm not, the place I work for doesn't pay for it, so I have to pay for my own, and it's very expensive. Even though I'm, a young, healthy adult. So, and then before I had insurance, like I went to my doctor, a couple years ago, for the flu. I just, had the flu, couldn't get over it. And just for that visit, consultation, just so he could prescribe me, you know, something, medication to help me get over this flu, it was $250. I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of money just for an office visit. I was just like, I was shocked. And so, I mean, and my mom being, my mom, she's like, "Oh, you have to have health insurance. You cannot not have health insurance," which I totally understand why she feels that way. And we've had, some situations come up with other family members, like my sister, where health insurance, would have been beneficial. Sorry. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm like, okay, fine. She's like, just for my peace of mind, I need you to have health insurance. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, I pay for my own health insurance. So you can only imagine in a Dazzler comic in the 1981 is 50 cents. And today comics are, I think the least amount I've seen a comic for is $4. So you can imagine, so, the comic being 50 cents, and then the a comic today, like I said, the least I've seen it for is like $4. So that's, you know, like 8 times as much. So you think 277 then back then would be like over $2,000 like in today's money for an overnight stay in the hospital, which that is crazy. But anything health related is just expensive. Anyway, sorry, got in a rant. Didn't mean to. I just thought that was an interesting observation because usually in comic books or TV shows or anything, like they'll say, "Hey, let me write down a number of, what I want to buy your house for or what your salary would be or what I'm offering you." They never say the amount. They just are like, "Let me write down a number." And we never get to see the amount. So I found it interesting when they specifically mentioned an amount, in this comic. And then, like I said, kind of with using like kind of simple math and comparing stuff, we can kind of figure out what that would be in today's money. So anyway, I don't know. I just like kind of doing things like that. Thinking about, okay, so that costs this much in that day and age, and now it would cost this much. So anyway, basically she goes to, her manager's office, Harry got Osgood, because she's like, wow, now I have this hospital bill and I am 2 months behind in my rent still. I need some money. So she goes to his office and kind of asks for an advance, which, she's like, oh, this is not going to go well. But what happens is he's so happy with the publicity she got from the UN heist and that like Human Torch vouched for her, who, I mean, Human Torch, Fantastic Four, they're very, very well known public figures. So to have a public figure celebrity endorsing you, basically saying, "Hey, you're innocent," that's really good publicity. So he's happy with all the publicity she's getting. So he actually does give her an advance because he does have a gig. He does have gigs lined up for her. And the first one, so she goes to rehearsal. And then she goes home, but she can't stop thinking about, sorry, Mrs. Cartelli that was in the hospital with her. And so she's like, how can I find out more information? So she calls Avengers, the mansion. Beast answers. There you go. And it takes a while, but he finds information about Joseph Cartelli because of Bo Barrington. Like, Bo Barrington is a known criminal, and the Avengers have, files and they keep tabs on all these criminals. So he gives her the information. She goes to this office building and even finds Joseph Cartelli listed, in one of the offices. So Bo and his guys are having a meeting about how well the empire, their criminal empire organization's going, how they can improve. And they're like, the Blue Shield is getting in our way. And apparently they stole this tank from the military, and this tank is going to take care of the Blue Shield for them. And the newspapers call it the Terror Tank, which is on the cover. So, um, So they're going to go look at the tank. They're going to go check, go to the warehouse and check out the new tank. And Joseph is like, I would love to see that. And they're like, no, you need to stay here, make sure my empire is running smoothly. And what we see in the thought bubble and, is that Joseph, well, I mean, this is shouldn't be a surprise, but Joseph is the Blue Shield. He like has infiltrated Bo's gang in order to get revenge, on him for his father's death. But he's also conflicted because Bo has been like a second father to him and trust him like to run his criminal empire. So there's like a little bit of a dichotomy there between like he loves the man because he's like a second father, but he hates him because he's responsible for his real father's death. So Dazzler comes in. She's like, I need to see, Joseph Cartelli. And basically, he thinks that she's just some, groupie, whatever. So he just blows past her, blows her off. Because Dazzler's trying to tell him about his mom. And so they're talking about how Mrs. Cartelli's, uh, the Dr. Jensen and Nurse Collins, talking about how Mrs. Cartelli's condition is worsening, is deteriorating even further. So basically, Allison follows Joey Cartelli, and she kind of loses him, can't find him, and then she sees the terror tank in one of the warehouses. And unfortunately, Barrington's men find her or see her, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing sniffing around?" And they rough her up a little bit, and do you see her teeny little purse? Okay, she takes her stereo out of or her stereo her radio out of her purse, and it tells us what song it's playing. Devo's Whip It. I'm sure all of you have heard that song. I just think it's interesting that they actually said a song, like named one. So anyway, she takes it out of her purse, uses her powers to like dazzle them, and inside her purse also are roller skates, like like the actual skate part that she can clip onto her boots, and she puts those on in order to you know, dodge the guys. I mean, I just think it's funny. Like, of course, Dazzler, her character, disco, all about the roller skates, because of course that was popular. Roller rings were popular, in the disco area in the 80s, I think. And so it's just think it's funny that she carries around like portable like skates that she can clip onto her boots. Anyway, but that's part of, her character because she at this point is still new with her powers. She doesn't know how to use them. So they play up the whole roller skating thing to, in order for her to have agility and to dodge, since she really can only at this point kind of dazzle people and stuff. She's still learning how to use her powers, basically. Since she didn't go to the X-Men for help, she doesn't know how to use her powers to their, greatest extent. So Joey is like, oh man, like now I have to save her because, you know, Barrington's men are gonna mess her up. This was not like part of my plan. So he bursts through, you know, and a Dazzler's like, ugh, with an entrance like that, um, he must be compensating for a massive securities. Oh, yeah. And she says in her thought bubble, she says she's heard of this guy. He's a small-time superhero on a private crusade against organized crime. And he's like, watch your mouth, cutie. It's you that needs saving. And she's like, I was doing just fine before you showed up. And he says, stay out of my way and you won't get hurt. And she's like, you know, what a chauvinist. So, we see them fighting, Dazzler kind of doing her best to stay out of the way. And then Bo runs in and gets into the tank because, his men are shooting at the blue shield and that does nothing. Because apparently like it's a belt that he uses that like produces the shield, and it augments his strength by 10, and also his improves his stamina, endurance, durability, all that stuff, because he says in here specifically, yeah, he has the strength, 10 times the strength of a normal man. Because he tells Dazzler to stay out of the way because he has 10 times the strength of a normal man. So if anyone could stop this tank, he could. And he charges at it and he just like bounces right back off of it. That's how strong this thing is. And he gets blasted out through the wall. And she dazzles the circuitry in the tank so that the visual sensors can no longer find her, but there's still the heat infrared sensors that can still see her. And so she tries to lure the tank out and off the pier, which there it goes off the pier. Like I said, a lot of these early Dazzler adventures are about her like dazzling people, dodging, attacks, or, getting kind of lucky um with things that happen. Like there just happens to be a pier, that she can have the tank like go off of. And the blue shield, he's like, what happened to the tank? Where is it? And she's like, it went into the water. And he's like, no, because Bo is in that tank. And so he goes after him, gets him out because he again is conflicted because this guy has been like a second father to him, but at the same time, he's responsible for his father's death, so he's really conflicted. And he feels also like this death would be like almost it wouldn't be revenge for him to die like this. Revenge to him is having him like rot in prison, for the rest of his life. That to him is revenge. So he calls the authorities on him, and basically the Blue Shield's finally like, "What are you doing here anyway? Like, what is going on? Like, why are you here?" And she's like, "I was looking for Joseph Cartelli. I need to tell him about his mom." And he's like, "Well, maybe he already knows." Maybe, he's staying away because it would only make things worse. And she's like, well, I just needed to deliver a message. And that she wanted him to know. She said, tell Joey I love him. And you can see his face. The realization sinks in. So he goes in his Blue Shield costume still. I guess didn't have time to change or even take off the mask because he's wearing a trench coat and hat, so he could have easily taken off the mask. But anyway, maybe it doesn't work that way. I don't know. So he visits his mom in the hospital and they talk, and she realizes it's him, and he says he's sorry for everything, all the pain he's caused, and um, she says, well, maybe we can start over, son. And Dazzler comes into the room. She doesn't see that it's the blue shield, but she's like, "Oh, I've interrupted something." So she leaves, and she sees Paul, so she starts to talk to him, and Nurse Collins is like, "Oh, that Dazzler, she's no good for him. I'll have to do something about that." And then you see that it says next, Dazzler versus the Hulk. So that is the next video we'll do, and so I hope you will join me for that. Um, yeah, Dazzler versus the Hulk. That'll be interesting. I mean, because especially at this point, since she doesn't have like fully control of her powers or anything. So I hope you will join me for that video, and until next time, bye.